welcome to everyone. Welcome to everyone, and wherever webinar by Agile 17 on the role of the Agile in the future of innovation. And this is one of the very, very close topic to my heart simply because I'm also a design thinking enthusiast. And by the way, I am Srini. I am senior Agile coach at Agile 17, and I have close to two decades of IT experience, both in product development companies as well as in IT services companies. And I lived in US for quite some time, and I'm super excited to discuss with you, about this topic of innovation. And today we have our special guest. His name is Mark Anthony Ekam. He is the founder of Agile 17, and he has a great experience in terms of agile implementations, and he comes with a lot of wisdom on agile overall transformation in majority of these companies. And actually, I'm super excited to introduce Mark Anthony. And let me actually share my screen. Let me know if you are able to see my screen. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes, we are able to see your screen, absolutely.
Excellent. And I would like to actually start with a quote by Mark Benoff, founder of Salesforce. Fast growth companies must keep innovating. Companies are like sharks. If they stop moving, they die. I mean, like this is invariably so true in the current times of pandemic. And if you are not able to innovate, and companies are going to extinct. So in this context, actually, we really need to leverage that culture of innovation, and invariably innovation involves exploration. Exploration means you do not know in certainty what is going to be the outcome and what exactly is going to work in the current market, and how to stay ahead of the competition. In that scenario, the kind of agility, we call it as business agility, and how do you actually reposition yourself in the changing demands of the market and changing preferences of our customers. That is where the innovation comes into picture. And are you really agile, and how exactly it is going to help in the innovation whole picture? We are actually going to discuss that a lot with Mark today. And let me actually introduce Mark's profile. And Mark Anthony Ekam is the founder of Agile 17, and he's a senior lean agile transformation coach with several years of experience across industry verticals, ranging from banking, airline, e-commerce, manufacturing, as well as startup tech companies. As a seasoned change agent, he holds a bachelor's degree in economics and master's in business administration from University of Phoenix, with multiple certifications and trainings in DevOps, Scrum, Agile coaching, product management, and a leading change in 21st century certificate from MIT. That's great. Welcome, Mark. Welcome to this topic today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Rini. I'm glad to be here. Yeah, and to share
Excellent.
my thoughts around the role of Agile and the future of innovation.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you so much, Mark, for being here today with us and share your wisdom of Agile implementation. And our audience are super excited to hear from you. And would you like to say a few things about Agile 17 and about yourself before we embark on this journey?
Well, in the reality, you said it all. The profile is says it all. So I have little at this point to add to it, but to say that I'm excited about our journey as a startup company, and excited to work with the people I work with. We have an awesome team here at Agile 17, and without them, this wouldn't have been possible. So thank you.
Excellent. Thanks a lot. And Mark, actually, I would like to understand, in your experience, right, how would you describe the concept of agile and business, and how it all comes together and complement each other, in the sense like being agile is very, very important to stay ahead of the competition, and to understand truly the changing customer preferences, and come up with great products that would be appealing to the target audience. How would actually it all fits together and come together? Can you
Yeah,
please throw some light on that?
yeah, great question, Srini, and thanks for that question. So the first part of it is, when we talk about agile, what is really agile?
Hmm.
Um, put in a very simple way, agile is mindset.
It's a
It is
mindset.
our
Yes,
mindset, right? How
absolutely.
we balance the flexibility as well as the needed stability we need to
Hmm.
accommodate the changing dynamics within the context of an organization or a business. Now, if we are doing a business, or if we are talking in the context of an organization, every organization typically comprises of multiple people. Organizations are made up of a certain culture. They have certain standards, procedures that follow. But those procedures and the culture that is inherent in every organization or business has to be adhered to by a certain group of people. We'll put those things in place for the people within who work within the context of the organization. So how do we balance the idea of the people, the culture, and the processes within those organizations to maximize output, right?
Right.
And in my experience, it becomes a very key challenge for us to really get to understand the mindset that is needed to really
Hmm.
transform an organization, move from a place of not only are we seeing the change, but actually transiting from where we are to where we need to be, right? So
Absolutely.
organizations and businesses go as far as doing the adoption of agile as a practice, or as a certain practice that enables them to become more nimble and work a
Exactly.
little bit faster and be
Hmm.
able to deliver solutions more effectively. And then within the context of the organization, you do have various teams that now need to adapt to these principles and the practice itself that has been introduced. And then you now have a very crucial element within that, which is the individual within the context of those teams that also now have to make the bold step of transiting from where they were to where they need to be. So if you're looking at it from that context, it means that Agile plays a key role in changing the very organic aspect of an organization or of a business. And then
Hmm.
we'll now start seeing those rippling effects that start all the way from individuals, plays out into the context of the team, and then into the broader organization. And obviously, how quickly and how much customer value that they can deliver when it comes to the marketplace.
Absolutely. And most of the organizations are still stuck with the mindset of the waterfall. I'm not against waterfall, by the way, because there is a certain amount of requirement when it comes to a predictability, and it's if it is a repeated rinse and repeat process, kind of a manufacturing facility, and there is a certain outcome based thing where you wanted that predictability to be there out there. And waterfall mindset, majority of the companies, for example, if we look at IT division within the company, 85% of the software development right now is actually adopting the, I'm like, one way or one form or other framework. They're on agile already.
Right.
But what do you see from the company's agile transformation? Where exactly people are still stuck with that old concept of command control mode of doing the things, I'm like top down approach. Things are decided at the higher up, and then trickling down to the working layer, where people are actually told to do something rather than self-organizing teams that we call it in agile. So
Yeah.
what do you see some of those challenges in this process, Mark?
Yeah,
Can you please throw some light?
and absolutely. Like I said, everything evolves, right? When
Mm-hmm.
especially when we're looking at the concept of agile, I do feel if you look at it very critically or very closely, we would find out that even when we do talk about agile, agile borrows from lean, it borrows a little bit from a
Right.
variety of other practices, even from a little bit from the waterfall practice, because it obviously lays out a foundation where you're looking at it, whether from a process standpoint, where you're
Mm-hmm.
looking at you're initiating a project, you're doing the necessary planning. Not only that, you're doing the right execution and the validations, and eventually closing out that project or that sprint within the context of maybe doing agile scrum or using scrum to
Right.
the agile practice. But one thing that I see that keeps plaguing and the mindset shift that we see, there is something we call the VUCA factor. The
VUCA
VUCA
factor.
the VUCA factor, and when I say VUCA, that's VUCA.
Yeah.
The VUCA factor, the V stands for volatility, the U stands for uncertainty, the C stands for complexity, and the A stands for ambiguity. In the world and in the market that we live today, these are real challenges that organizations are faced with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether we're looking at markets being very volatile, whether it's as a result of something that we call, I call it the pestos. When I
Mm-hmm.
say pesto, um, I'm referring to political, economic. I'm referring to political, economic, not only political and economic, I'm also referring to social factors. Not only am I referring to social factors, I'm also referring to some of those instances where you could have technological factors, you could have legal implications and environmental implications as well that go
Right.
as far as, changing the way organizations look at things, right?
Right.
So it becomes really a challenge where if we're considering that VUCA factor as something very key to how it influences the output of businesses and sustainability of a business in the marketplace, then that shift, that fundamental shift in the mindset becomes very critical. Whether we're looking at it
Absolutely.
from whether we are thinking about it from more of a scheduling standpoint, where especially in the waterfall area where we're looking at, we schedule, we think of scope, we think of schedule, and then not only that, we also think of budget, to
Mm-hmm.
fundamentally shifting from that aspect of it to a more agile way of looking at things, where we're not only looking at it from that perspective, but we're now taking it to looking at it from how much value are we able to deliver to our customers? What are some of the constraints or some of the limitations that we may have or see that could impede our abilities to deliver the right value and the right quality to our customers? And
Absolutely.
that's where we start seeing that fundamental shift. So organizations that have not been able to adopt some of these practices and move on through these phases are beginning to die off. As we can
Exactly.
see with the COVID, especially with COVID, right? With
Mm-hmm.
COVID-19, there's a couple of organizations. I was talking to a few of my friends, a couple of them that worked in organizations that didn't have the remote work from home policy or have the infrastructure to support that work from home policy. At the peak of COVID, it was very difficult. Some of them had to be sent home, but they couldn't do any work and they still remain on the payroll, right, for
Mm.
weeks before the
Exactly.
organizations could actually set up the right infrastructure to support them working remotely. So
Absolutely.
these are things that start impacting and start becoming more of a challenge as we go along when we're looking at the waterfall approach of things.
Yes, I completely agree with you, Mark, on that. I mean, this pandemic, it's a completely it's a tectonic shift in terms of the way we used to work earlier and versus what we are currently doing right now. And new norms have been accepted as a matter of running the operations, and businesses are doing in a different way of doing their business rather than the traditional way. And even for that matter, the great point of work from home policy, I mean, that changed everything, right? So that even in India, that had a large impact on even the real estate, commercial real estate. When you see the office occupancy rates have gone down completely, and now things are actually turning around a little bit, but still we are not there yet as before. Okay,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
so yeah, let me move on to the next question if you allow me to. Okay, so let me see. Can we actually, yeah, so the next question is, how does Agile drive innovation? Like innovation, we understand that it requires a lot of exploration by the very nature of innovation involves, hey, I have a hypothesis and I have this particular product or service that will be appealing to my target audience, but uh, it's a kind of an exploration. And how does Agile drive that innovation? Can you please let us know about that, Mark?
No. So Agile drives innovation through very fundamental ways.
Mm-hmm.
So in the context of every organization that we find ourselves, one of the key things that Agile does is that it pushes us to continuously seek out new things and new ways of doing things, right? Because the idea is staying flexible and also being stable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in line with that, anytime we're going through the notion of agile as a driving factor for innovation, we're not only thinking of innovation from the standpoint of just being innovative, we're also thinking about innovation from the standpoint of, are we continuously exploring new knowledge?
Okay.
If we're continuously exploring new knowledge, are we continuously applying the new knowledge?
Okay.
Are we continuously learning? And that way, that's how we really start tracking to really start understanding how innovation can really play out within the context of Agile being the key driver. Because within that, it spells out for us that we constantly need to learn, constantly need to apply. If we're going to do those two things, that means we constantly need to explore. And the more we explore those new knowledge and new areas, that uncharted areas or uncharted waters, I call them, then it becomes an avenue for us to be innovative and take it to that next level where we're now being more efficient, more effective, and more aligned with the way we do things and the way we encourage our people, the way we promote and push the idea of them going out there, failing fast, and learning from those things to really drive more value within the organization.
Excellent. Excellent. Let me actually share my screen once again, if you allow me,
Okay.
and just see that.
Okay.
Are you able to see my screen now?
Yes, I can see it now.
Okay. So the next very important question I have in my mind is, how can businesses and people ensure the concept of agility embedded in the solution delivery? Because if you look at even the scaled agile framework, solution delivery is a very important topic. Mark, we both actually discussed a lot about this topic, and how can we actually consciously make sure that agility is embedded in the solution delivery? Do you have any thoughts to share on that?
Yeah. Again, agility. When we talk about agility, again, it goes back to that thought process of us being flexible, being stable, right? It goes back to the concept of people. It goes back to the concept of culture. How do we fuse people, culture, and processes and bring everything together to jive very effectively within the context of the work we're doing and how we're doing it? So it becomes very pertinent for us to understand that if we're going to deliver the solution, what kind of solution are we even delivering? How are we corralling the activities around people? How are we corralling, aligning them with the right culture to promote the idea of continuous learning, continuous application, or continuous exploration, or giving them that ground to an opportunity to get creative? For instance, I tell you at Agile 17, our culture is that we focus on the role and not the title, right? When we focus on the role, what that does for us is that it empowers every individual within the context of the team to take ownership, to know that you own the work you do and
Exactly.
you're valued in terms of your opinion, in terms of the suggestions you bring to the table, in terms of input. We do have innovative sessions where we share thoughts around learnings over the period of the week. What are some of the things we've learned? What are some of the things we can bring into our way of working to help us get better and be more efficient? So as we deliver our solutions, what you see start happening is that there's proliferation of thinking. It's shared thinking, is shared responsibility, but that sense of individual accountability still remains there. And so with that, we're able to really see ourselves become very, very engaged within the context of the solution we're delivering, right? And that helps us get much more better and embed agility within the context of solution delivery.
Got it. Got it.
Okay, so please go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
With your question.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So my question is more on the does the rise of Agile and its frameworks of application signal a total shift in from the traditional ways of delivery and the future of innovation? That was my question. Yeah.
So there is a need, right? There is a fundamental need and a fundamental requirement for that shift, right? Especially considering the nature and the world we live in today. Technology is proliferating. As we proliferate with technology, things are beginning to change from what they used to be to something else. Like, for instance, there is this new technology that has been developed in genetic engineering called CRISPR. A couple of years ago, nobody could really go back in time to edit human DNA, right, or genes. They call it genome engineering, right, genetic engineering. Today, you can do that. There have been reports of a doctor who actually used that to edit an embryo in China, right? So the becomes agility, yes, innovation, it's good. All those things are moving forward and moving ahead within the context of what we see happening. But there becomes also a fundamental question of how ethical can some of these innovations be, right? And are we also, as we evolve through the innovation and, you know, would I say, the complete shift from a more waterfall way of doing the project to, or managing solutions or delivering solutions to a more fast-paced, more aggressive, more innovative way, which is the agile way of doing things? Does that signal that companies who or that aren't able to move from where they are today to where they need to be, that could signal some serious consequences? We've seen that happen with companies like Yahoo. We've seen it happen to companies like Sears. We've seen it happen to a whole lot of companies, JC Penney, the list goes on and on. And especially with COVID, COVID has actually led us to the Great Reset. People are beginning, it's spun up a new rise of things where, especially the younger, the generation, much younger generation, right? They don't want to be confined to doing things a certain way, right? They want to explore, they want to be more innovative about things. They don't want to work in a certain place for 10, 15 years. They want to go out there and seek. So the things are changing, and organizations need to employ a practice or way of doing things that enables them be more adaptive. And the
Right.
agile mindset or the agile way of driving projects or solution delivery actually emphasizes adaptability within the context.
Absolutely.
So that means we're responding to change, we're responding to the dynamics within our environment, and we're really taking those into consideration on how it impacts the people, the culture we have in place, as well as the processes we have within the organization. So if you asked me, there will become a time that organizations can either be agile or step aside.
Absolutely. I think one of the uh, a great point that you touched base was the ability of the leadership to let the team decide on what they are actually going to work, and that's a paradigm shift in terms of traditional way of doing the work and versus the agile way of doing the things, because
Correct.
and right, and the other important thing was like not doing a lot of work in a short span of time, deliberately doing this smaller iterations and learn from those small iterations, and then quickly pivot and then adapt yourself to the changing needs, because the learning curve of doing running those small sprints will enable the team to understand more about themselves and about the way the work is being done. What do
Yes.
you think, actually, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, agile, the iterative component of agile is a key aspect, but there are
Right.
more fundamental aspects too that drive that part of it. And one of the key
Absolutely.
things that we see driving that too is anytime collaboration. When you look at the Scrum, for instance, I give you an example. When you look at the
Mhm.
Scrum framework, within the Scrum framework, there are six core principles that drive the way we leverage that framework to apply the agile mindset. The
Exactly.
first part of it is that understanding that it's an empirical process control. If you're understanding that it's an empirical process control, that means you were understanding that it's observation and experimentation, where there's a direct input, there's a process that sets up the structure for the input to flow and kind of build it out for us to have a certain output, right? We also understand there's a component of it that is the self-organization, which you rightly pointed out in this context, right? The self-organization is that we are taking responsibility and accountability for our work. So collectively as a team, we're responsible. Individually and within the context of the team, we're accountable, right?
Right.
So doing that in that fashion helps us self-organize. But it also goes back to one thing. That means we have to cultivate the right behaviors. So in the
Absolutely.
absence of us cultivating the right behaviors, being able to self-organize can be a challenge. In the absence of us having that mutual respect as a people, being able to self-organize could be a challenge. So you
Absolutely.
really find out that a lot of things that we do within that context is also centered around behaviors. And through that, you can now start driving the collaboration, understanding the essence of value-based prioritization as one of those principles, time boxing, being able to set designate a certain amount of time to help drive solutions or drive increments of the solution, right? To a point where
Absolutely.
we're delivering value more frequently. And how can we deliver that value? The best way we can do it is by doing it iteratively. So you see the full cycle of those six principles and how it can be embodied into the concept of agile and how it helps us drive that. So yes, iterative development is great, and it embodies more than we can actually think of within that context.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that actually reminds me, sometimes there is no sort of a project manager kind of a role
Yes,
in the Scrum framework, but we
yes,
do have a servant leader, a role who removes the impediments. Typically, the Scrum
correct.
Master, right? And at the same time, he is not going to tell the team that what they need to do, but but he's the one who actually puts them all together, and then removes the impediments, and then makes sure that they are following the process without having a direct control over the team. That's a very beautiful, delicate balance that he really needs to maintain, frankly speaking, and that comes with a lot of experience, in my opinion. And of course, that's a kind of a people skill as well, if you ask me. And that brings me to the question. One of the last questions on this webinar is a very, very important one. Is like, how does a framework like Scrum enable innovation for teams? Actually, like, we have lots of frameworks out there, but predominant one in the Agile world is a Scrum, right? Scrum framework. And do you see that it enables the teams to do the innovation much better?
Yes.
In comparison to the other frameworks?
Absolutely. I mean, it all depends on the lens you look at it from, right?
Right.
So Scrum is the most practiced framework because I believe it's a very simple and very effective way of deploying the Agile mindset. And one of the things you would not want to know, we need to know, is that it splits up the context of work into specific areas, right?
Correct.
Whether you're looking at it from the roles that are very defined, and again, like in my earlier comment, I said within the context of Agile 17, we focus on roles, not title. Right. And that brings us again, if you take that mindset and bring it to the way Scrum works, we focus on roles. You have the product owner, you have the Scrum master, you have the Scrum development team that are dedicated to specifically doing certain things that help drive the organization forward, right? Within the context of that, you see instances where the product owner is responsible for being the voice of the customer, whether it's the return on investment, prioritization of work, and being able to funnel the requirements to the team, right? Acting in the capacity of the person with the right product knowledge that has an understanding of what the business or line of business needs. And then you take it to the Scrum Master, who is more on the process side of things, so helping implement and drive processes, coaching, facilitation, and mentoring. And then you now have the development team that is also part of the whole process, that is more aligned more to the design, build, test, and deploy, right? Of the solution. So you see that the roles are very distinct, but at the same time, it pulls everybody to the center, which is what? To a simple and common objective or goal, right? So in each sprint, there's a specific goal. And then you have these individuals playing these roles and having different ceremonies and activities that help corral their entire roles they play and bring it together. So it's an amazing framework that, a lot of organizations find value in leveraging it. Even frameworks such as SAFe or Scaled Agile, we call it Scaled Agile for the enterprise. Frameworks such as those also leverage Scrum. It's embedded into that framework. And I think Scrum has a huge, massive role to play. And the idea of small teams doing a certain amount of work and incrementally doing it over and over again, getting better, understanding retrospection and introspection, understanding process improvement, product feedback, process feedback, understanding updates, and understanding certain definitions of when they are ready to do work. It makes it an amazing, amazing framework to leverage to build the solutions.
Exactly. And I know that you have been the Agile coach and helping the organizations to do the Agile transformation. And one of the, can you actually throw some light on what are some of the challenges that you encounter when it comes to the Agile transformation when you are actually coaching the teams? Right. I know a lot of facilitation also you do. And and a lot to learn from you actually. So what are the some of the things that you encounter when you actually coach the teams to do the agile transformation in a better way, Mark?
Great questions, Srini. Challenges are what you see when you do a transformation. The first part is very fundamental and rudimentary, right? From the standpoint of leadership. Leadership is the foundation of
Correct.
everything. So when we're engaging in a transformation and trying to see things move from where they are to where they need to be, leadership
Mm-hmm.
involvement and understanding of the why becomes
Why?
very critical.
Mm-hmm.
So some leaders, Agile doesn't work magic. It's not a magic wand that you wave
Absolutely.
and everything starts moving the way it should move. You
Right.
have to understand that there is also, I wrote an article in 2014 that talked about, actually not 2014, in 2017, that talked about why Agile teams fail. One of the key
Right.
factors I pointed out in that article, and it's on the agile17.com blog
Website.
space on the website, on the agile17.com website, is that entrenchment. When I talk about the entrenchment factor, I mean people being entrenched in their ideologies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And having a certain expectation that things are just going to stay the same based on what they've known, and not opening their minds to better opportunities and better ways of doing things. Now, there's a caveat to that when you're doing it or leading an effort around the transformation. Um, you don't want to make them feel like, oh, what you know is the wrong thing, right? You
Mm-hmm.
know the wrong thing. That means you are failing. This is the right way to do it, because that's another debacle you're going to hit, right?
Right.
In the
Right.
event you're not able to really get them to understand or acknowledge what they are doing first,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Mm-hmm.
say, how would you feel if there was a better way to do it?
Exactly.
So transformation takes, it's a very I'll call it a dicey engagement, because
Chaotic.
you constantly need to again observe, experiment, learn behaviors. Different behaviors may call for different ways of approach or different approach. Different understanding may call for a different approach. There are so many ways you can approach a transformation, but the essential part of it is really the people. When you can
Exactly.
capture the people, leadership has buy-in, and then you can now capture the people from the standpoint of saying, okay, what is it that you're doing? I
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge what you're doing, but there's a better way. And if there is that better way of doing it, are you really interested in exploring that new way of doing things? And I think
Absolutely.
that's where the huge challenge is. It's always a very slow turning boat or sheep. But at the end of the day, people do change. People do change,
Absolutely.
and you devise means of making it work within the context of the organization you're working
Yes, yes. I mean, turning around the ship, we call it in the typical way, right? I mean,
in. Yeah,
you are actually
exactly,
headed towards a
exactly,
direction, and you need to turn it around. And turning
exactly.
around that thing is not very easy for sure,
It's not.
because and
Yes.
any organizational because the very nature of this agile transformation involves uh, doing the things in a different way. That means actually a little bit of a cultural shock to the existing norms of doing the things, if you ask me. And sometimes that brings in the resistance from the people who are quite used to do the traditional way of doing the things, because this is a kind of a, as you rightly pointed, it is a shift. It's a mindset shift. Frankly speaking, it's a mindset shift, and that it takes some time for people to go through the transformation, work transformation. The way they work is completely going to change. Sometimes even the roles actually shift, right? I mean, all of a sudden their roles are shifting, and then their the org hierarchy, it's maybe, I think you are bringing together cross-functional teams, bringing together in the scaled agile framework as
Yes.
an art, right?
Yes.
Agile release train. Agile release train, it invariably involves cross-functional teams.
Yes.
And doing agile, being agile, that's again another topic for another webinar probably. But I completely agree with you on that, Mark. I mean, like, agile transformation is a different set of ball game altogether. And we do have some questions from the audience. Would you like to take up some of those?
No, please.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so one of the question our audience was asking, like, what kinds of projects and innovations are suitable for agile methodology? Would you like to throw some light on that one as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the agile scrum or agile, the mindset of agile can be applied to any kind of project. It doesn't matter whether it's in the healthcare space, whether it's in the airline domain, whether it's in any domain at all that you can think of. As it stands, the U.S. Department of Defense uses Agile Scrum. They leverage SAFe actually to do, and Scrum is built into it, right?
Right.
You look at organizations like CNN. They leverage the Scrum approach in doing the every hour anchoring, because you come to the context of, okay, I give you an example, right? The news anchors that do every segment, that do segments for every hour. Within the context of the segment, you have a camera crew, you have a newscaster, you have a makeup artist, you have a researcher that is researching in real time to find breaking news and provide it to the caster within the time frame. You have a lot of people. You have people who take pictures, the photographer. There are different roles that are consolidated into just that 1 hour segment. So you find out that they are still leveraging Scrum, right? Which is Agile, a framework for applying the Agile mindset. I've worked in organizations in the past, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's food manufacturing, heavy equipment manufacturing, power. You're looking at startups, you're looking at insurance, name it, medical devices, banking. It goes on and on. But you can leverage it in any area or in any domain. It's just that the applications may vary depending on how the structure of the organization is, the culture as well, the people, as well as some of the processes they have in place.
Got it. And another question I always get is that most of the times people have an assumption that agile transformation, Scrum, this all applies to IT teams, and how best this agile applies to non-IT divisions of the organizations, say for example HR and even the marketing, right?
Yes.
These non-IT divisions, how this agile methodology actually be applied to those non-IT organizations when it comes to the innovation, Mark?
Yeah. And again, we don't, like I gave an example of CNN. CNN is it's not technical, right? We're not delivering like a software, right? But HR, there are newer practices in HR, whether it is where have been able to visualize our work on a Kanban board, have different teams that work different. You have a team that is responsible for onboarding. You have a team that is responsible for the benefits alignment. You have a team that is responsible for compliance and regulations. So that you can build small teams that are focused on delivering work in specific streams of value. Right. So within the HR organization, you can find those value streams and build the solutions or build the work within those environments around those streams, right? By having smaller teams delivering and working collaboratively, both within and across with the other teams to really find and fine-tune the way they do onboarding. Maybe if you were doing onboarding for 2 weeks and you're able to cut that down to 3 days.
Exactly.
Understanding the right tools to leverage, the right processes to put in place, the human interaction. One of the first core manifestos of Agile is that is individuals and interaction over processes and tools.
Absolutely.
Not to say we don't need the processes and tools,
right,
but focus more on the interaction. So when you have the right people organized within the right context, working more collaboratively, and understanding work that flows in a certain stream of value, then you can start seeing that expansion into processes being more aligned, dependencies being tracked in more efficient ways, and then also seeing the tools that you need to make your work, the work style, a lot easier. And those are ways you can see those HR units, governance, and the rest of them start transforming and becoming more agile organizations and creating the right transparency too within the context of the organization.
Absolutely. I've seen some of the organizations leveraging, especially when you quoted HR, they were actually using Kanban boards of IT fulfillment challenge, and they very efficiently used it to reduce some of the delays that they used to have in the system by leveraging the Kanban boards in the HR department. That was really a very interesting case study, actually.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Right? And one of the other question we got from our audience was, do you see Agile methodology as a method that is here to stay for years to come?
If you ask me as a proponent of Agile, I would say the world needs Agile. The world has no other way to go than to, in a world that is so fast, in a world that solutions and technology is proliferating at an exponential rate, the only way any organization or government, even within the context of the government, there are smaller amendments, because the way technology is going, even regulators and policymakers are not able to keep up. And one way they can start keeping up is to incrementally start amending some of those policies and regulations that have been around for a while. So rather than having a full-blown amendment of an entire policy or regulation, they're taking pieces of the regulation that apply to the specific context, and they update it quickly and are able to apply it. So you can see that mindset still flowing into policy making, regulations, flowing into government politics, flowing into, in 2012, Obama brought in the whole digital thing in politics, right? Where he used it to rally a lot of young people who ordinarily were not inspired to be part of the political atmosphere in the United States. So we've seen technology leveraged in an agile way, and you see that it cuts across all verticals, whether you're I've seen it actually used in a church.
Church,
so you can start imagining when you were doing all these robotics, AI, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and so many things that are happening in the space of innovation today are all powered by smaller, nimble teams working collaboratively, delivering increments of the overall solution and delivering it faster. So Agile, in my opinion, if you ask me, is here to stay.
Absolutely, I completely, agree on that, and we both discussed about some of these explosive innovations using artificial intelligence, and a lot of innovation is happening at a very rapid pace. And I still remember you discussing about some of the ethical concerns and regulations, right? In this kind of scenario where I think you were quoting some of those DNA
Yes.
genome coding kind of a thing.
Yeah,
Do you want to
genomes.
do you want to share some of your views on that as well, on those innovation ethical things
Yeah,
actually?
I think at some point, as we go through the whole innovation cycle, I think one key aspect of it, and I might do have an article coming out here, is to really start thinking of ethics. What are the ethical components that we need to really think about as we evolve some of these innovative ways or innovations and proliferate them? What impact does it have on
Correct.
humanity? Because as much as we talk agile, agile is also empathy. We need to
Empathy,
be
no
able to
doubt about
show
it.
the
Yes.
empathy. We need to be able to show the concern around the environment, around how it impacts other people who are in areas or in countries who don't have the same access to the technology.
Right.
So those become very key for us as we go along, right? To really understand those things. So for me, I think ethics is a very key component that we innovators, whether we're using the agile way of driving solutions, should
Right.
start really thinking about as we evolve our solutions. How can we incorporate it as we go along to make sure we're making the
Excellent.
world a better place?
Absolutely. And great insights, Mark. And thank you so much. And it's been a great pleasure, knowing your wisdom and sharing it with our target audience. I really, really appreciate those guys who actually joined here for this webinar. And we are going to launch many such webinars soon down the line. We have a schedule and cadence on that one as well. Please stay tuned, and we can actually you can actually check it out on our website, agile17.com. You got to actually spell it out like agile17, SEVENTEEN.com, because we do have another another website, AG17 is also there. That's what I wanted to let you guys know. And then Mark, can you actually, I have sent you the PPT since you are the host right now. Can you actually bring up the last slide so that actually people can actually get the coordinates of Agile 17? And do you have any last few words that you wanted to share with our audience before we wind up?
Again, a great deal. If you wanted to find us, you know where, like Trini had rightly pointed out, is www.agile17.com. Our right phone number, if you wanted to send us an email, is talkagile, TALK, AGILE, talkagile at agile17, AGILESEVENTEEN.com. And also feel free to give us a call at 469-235-1904. And we're more than happy to provide any kind of context or any kind of ideas or questions that you may have to actually address any concerns of yours at all, and to check out some of our training packages as well.
Thank you so much, Mark. And it's a great session, and absolutely, I'm looking forward to have many more sessions from you on this one. And please stay tuned for many more such webinars from agile17.com, and stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Take care.